Hello, and welcome to this edition of Exclusive Interview, coming to you from the studios of 84 TV Radio, Abuja, Nigeria. My name is Stanley Bentu. Now, Nigeria's top security officers, including the service chiefs, recently got a presidential order to develop new strategies for arresting the deteriorating security situation in the country. But the main question is, where do we go from here?
The crack of gunfire once again ripped away the fragile peace in Borno State. This time, the target was the motorcade of the troubled state's governor, Babagana Zulum. The governor was on routine inspection when his convoy was attacked by suspected Boko Haram fighters between Baga and Mungono. He was whisked away from his official car and smuggled into the Federal Anti-Robbery Squad armored personnel carrier to keep him safer after the attack was repelled. Furious from an attempt on his life, Governor Zulum accused the military of sabotage, questioning why nearly 1,200 soldiers, led by 72 officers, can possibly be prevented from retaking Baga town from 5 Boko Haram fighters. President Muhammadu Buhari, at a recent meeting with the security chiefs in Abuja, restated his displeasure with their inability to protect lives and property. The National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mungono, retired, told reporters that the president, at the meeting, reaffirmed his earlier message to the security chiefs that their best is just not enough. What President Buhari demands is that security agencies should rejig their strategies, both in terms of operations and intelligence. A noble desire that would reap positive results, no doubt, but would that be enough? Does Nigeria's security challenge require an integrated effort to overhaul the criminal justice system through actions of the legislature, the judiciary, as well as the executive at all levels? On today's edition of the program, we take a deep dive into Nigeria's security situation as we seek ideas about how best to rejig Nigeria's security architecture. We speak to Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired, former public relations officer of the Nigerian Army, who has himself fought the war against insurgency in the Northeast. Born February 2nd of 1965, young Usman had his primary and secondary education in Kukasheka and Kafancham in Kaduna State, respectively. He joined the Nigerian Army as recruit in 1983 and was posted to Headquarters 82 Division, Army Public Relations, Enugu. After a few years in the Army, he went to Bayero University, Kano, to study mass communications and was awarded a bachelor's after 3 years, graduating in 1991. He took public relations courses at different institutions and held positions as Army spokesperson at different commands within and outside the country throughout his career. General Usman was appointed acting spokesperson of the Nigerian Army on January 30th of 2015. While a colonel, his appointment was confirmed in June of 2017, months after he was promoted as a brigadier general in December 9th of 2016.
It's a pleasure now to welcome to Exclusive Interview my guest for today, Brigadier General S.K. Usman. General, you're very much welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, we would like to talk about a number of things, including some of your experience as a soldier and as someone who's been in public relations. But looking at Nigeria as a nation and some of the challenges that it's facing, recently President Buhari talked about rejigging the security architecture in Nigeria. And I think nowhere are we facing a greater challenge than the northeastern part of the country. We did record some progress in the earlier part of 2015 all the way to about 2016, 2017, but a lot of that progress has been rolled back. As someone who is an expert on security, what do you think the challenges are in dealing with such a complex situation?
Well, there are quite a number of challenges actually, and I believe it is on the basis of that they are talking about re-engineering the whole of the security architecture, rejigging, and invariably it means more or less like recalibrating the whole security architecture. Now, when you look at the component that makes up the Nigerian security architecture, you are talking about both the visible and invisible. Take, for instance, we have the armed forces, we have the police, and we have other security agencies ranging from custom, immigration, civil defense, correctional service, and so on and so forth, including to the educational system, and of course the overwhelming Nigerian population. Now, it is premised on the fact that a lot of things are not going right, as you rightly observed, and maybe we have to look at it now. Take, for instance, the Northeast in particular. Between 2015 to date, of course, if you look at it, and maybe 2009 to 2015, you can make comparative analysis in the sense that we have had instances a particular terrorist group take up against the Federation to the point of carving out some part of the territory, establishing a caliphate. But thankfully, the security agencies, the armed forces, and Nigeria as a whole rose to the occasion, and that is no more. But then again, we are supposed to consolidate on what the military had been doing, to the point that as we no longer had the bomb blasts in the Federal Capital Territory and other parts of the country, it should continue to, fizzle out to the point that we should have acceptable security in the country. Now, a lot of factors inhibited that. Take, for instance, there were allegations and counter-allegations against the military, against the security agencies, whether proven or not. And then there are other aspects that we have not been doing right. To what extent are those allegations true? I think now that these issues are being investigated, I think we should wait for the outcome of that. But beyond that, we all know that there are certain things that are fundamentally wrong, particularly with the security architecture. Now, let's look at the armed forces. Are they properly equipped? Do we have the prerequisite manpower? And do they have the support and the cooperation of both the government and the Nigerian society to enable them to perform optimally? These are some of the questions. And what is the level of synergy? What is the equipment holding? And what is the remuneration and the logistic support? Take, for instance, now people will be just thinking, but an average soldier, and not just a soldier, right from the most senior military officer in the theater in the Northeast, let's start from remunerations, for instance. He lives on 1,000 naira per day. 1,000 naira, except I know for the Nigerian army they have increased it. How they were able to do that to 2,000 naira per day. You can imagine, right from the theater commander, the various component commanders. When I talk about component commanders, because there are, the components of the Nigerian army, the Nigerian navy, and the Nigerian Air Force, and other security agencies, talking about the police, civil defense, and everybody else fighting the war against terrorism and insurgency. The armed forces were on 1,000 naira per day, right from the major general up to the last private soldier. Is it enough? Could this motivate someone to sacrifice his life? And how much is their salary? What is the support? When I'm talking about support, it might not only be material or equipment. Sometimes, the military profession is composed of people that are human beings that need to be understood, need to be supported, need to be encouraged.
They should not support.
Exactly.
Is that what you're talking about?
You should not demoralize them. I hope you understand. So these are
ways do you feel that society demoralizes our fighting men?
Look, there are several unguarded utterances against the military. Now, for instance, generalization without being specific and without even tangible evidence to back it up. Now, let's even look at it. The recent issues involving Borno State government.
Borno State.
Now, you just
statements
walk,
that he's made
yeah,
on more than one occasion.
Yeah, you just walk into my house and we have a family that comprise of the father, the mother, children, and possibly some other dependents. You just look at everybody and say there is a thief in this house. I mean, so who is the thief? Now, definitely the parents will lose the rights and their dignity of parents because the children will ask questions. But if there is evidence that actually XYZ is a thief and this is how that person steals, I think that is even far more better. Because there are some people that they don't even know what is going on. And now they are sacrificing, they are dying, and all you have to do is to accuse them. Whenever they do things that are good, you hardly know. But it's not just the political class. Even the media itself too sometimes is culpable in the sense that it is only in Nigeria terrorists will perform crimes against humanity and you see it on the front pages of the newspaper. I'm not saying that you should not report, but the truth is that you should not glorify acts of terrorism.
So it's in the manner in which the reporting
exactly,
is done that kind of glamorizes the action. And that's what the terrorists want.
Exactly, because it was Margaret Thatcher that they said the tribe, the media is publicity is the oxygen of terrorism. So they are not even concerned about.
Well, General, you talked about rejigging or re-engineering the different paramilitary and military organizations that we have. What are some of the ways, some of the critical things that we need to do, those fundamental changes we need to make beyond just our utterances?
Okay. First and foremost, when you talk about rejigging security architecture, you have to start from maybe what are those things you are going to rejig. The starting point is the legal framework on the basis of which all this architecture lies. Mm-hmm. What are the constitutional provisions? Are they okay? Take for instance, which section talks about of the Constitution talk about the establishment, I think 126, 127, 128 talks about the establishment of the police and the armed forces. And you cannot do otherwise. You just have one Nigerian police force. So, is this legal instrument correct? Then of course, what are those statutory legislations that establish this? What is the level of relationship? Because there are duplications of policies, there are overlapping of functions, there are issues of unhealthy rivalry and matters of perception. Take for instance, there were several instances, even if you go back like 2010, for the first time we had this bomb blast in Abuja on 1st October.
That's right.
Now, the perception of the Department of Security Service was entirely different with that of the Nigerian Police Force. But if there is harmonized way of doing things or saying things, you channel your resources towards solving the problem and you get the best result. That is one. Two, then you look at policies. There are duplication of policies. I mean, policies that need to be, streamlined so that everybody is up to specifics. Again, we look at other means of resolving conflicts before they degenerate or escalate to what they become. What are the alternative dispute resolution, in the country? Mm-hmm. What are the roles of the traditional institutions, rulers and institutions?
The political class.
What is the role of the society? And you know it. Mm-hmm. Even though there is no statistical data to back it up, the level of trust between the citizens and government and security agencies is not something that you write home about.
And it's a major gap,
exactly.
General, because we have lots of investigations, committees, white papers. It's not up to the military or the police to implement that. It's up to the people at the highest level of governance.
You are
these
quite right.
Address the fundamental issues that lead up to violence.
You come back to these issues of politics, policies and implementation strategies. Do we follow through? These are some of the questions. Now, if we go back, again, the security architecture, do we have enough manpower? What is the total strength of the armed forces vis-a-vis the security challenges we are experiencing in this country?
As of last I checked, that was roughly just a little over 100,000.
Well, we don't mention the disposition, the strength, equipment, and future intentions of the military. Yeah.
And beyond that, it is stretched.
Yes,
the military is
I'm even coming
engaged
to that. You look at it, the whole of this security challenges is simply because of one thing. We totally neglected the policing system and the police in this country. They were victims during the military administration. But let's even put that at the back of our mind. Let's face the present challenges now. Between 1999 to date, which is almost 21 years, what has been the recruitment system? What level of manpower or human resource have been injected into the police force? What efforts have been made to train the quality of training of an average policeman on recruitment? And what do you do to sustain him to meet up with the best standards of policing system in the country? Are they well equipped? Are they well remunerated? The problem is that you need to even know that their takeaway home after leaving the service is nothing to write home about, and this leaves room for corrupt practices. And there is so much politicization of the policing system, interference. Now go back to the framework that I'm talking about. The Nigerian police force alone, we have the office of the Inspector General of Police, the whole gamut of the structure. Now you have the Police Council. Possibly you are even hearing it for the first time, I'm sure. Then we have the Police Service Commission. Then we have the Police Ministry for Police Affairs. Now, for goodness sake, who says what, who does what? Who has operational control? Who has administrative control?
Absolutely.
Now, let's even go back.
We will have to take a break now.
Okay, fine.
But as soon as we come back, I will let you finish your thought and even expand a little bit more about how we can correct some of these things. We'll be right back. Don't go away. You're welcome back to Exclusive Interview, and I've been spending time with Brigadier General S.K. Usman, who knows a thing or two about security. He is an expert with many years of experience under his belt, a former military spokesperson of the Nigerian Army. General, as I said earlier, I would let you finish your thoughts concerning the structure of our police force. And you mentioned several organs that influence policing policies and all of that. So what are some of the challenges there, and what do we need to do to streamline and delineate these responsibilities and roles?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier on, I was talking about the Police Council, for instance. It's a constitutional provision. Nobody bothered, nobody thought about it, not until 2018, when the Senior Executive Course 40 of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies were given the theme as part of their course or strengthening security architecture in Nigeria and community policing. Then all of us realized that we even have the Police Council, which is supposed to be chaired by the President. And all the state governors are supposed to be members, and some other institutions and personalities. Now that council has not been meeting. I think so far, within the last 20 years, it has met only 3 or 4 times. Now, had it been that it's meeting on regular basis, I believe all the security challenges, because the state governors, they are closer to the people and they get feedback from their local government chairman and their state security council. They could have tabled most of the security challenges and by now would have done something within the last 20 years to improve the policing system. Now, it will interest you to know a division of the police gets only 40,000 naira per quarter, not per month. Now, for goodness sake, look at the area a police division is supposed to cover. How could 40,000 naira fuel generator, fuel vehicle, and other logistics? What of communication? And to what extent have we integrated science, technology, and innovation in our policing system?
Intelligence gathering.
Exactly. What of equipment? The whole of Abuja, we don't even have closed circuit monitor. The project is moribund. So there are so many things, and honestly, if you know how much they earn, either in terms of monthly salary or when they discharge from the service, it will shock you. And that gives sense of insecurity and corrupt tendencies. What is happening to the police is no different with the armed forces.
But just looking at the magnitude of work to be done, because this is what's been going through my mind. We have to go back, so we need acts of the National Assembly to adjust some of these laws. We also need to streamline the police so that we can disengage or start to disengage the military from internal affairs and they can focus on their original mandates of protecting the territorial integrity. And then we need to make sure that the political class implement a lot of these things that will not only provide hope for Nigerians, but also address some of the key fears that lead to violence. It's a lot to do. Exactly. And it's not something we can achieve in the next 1, 2, 5, maybe not even in 10 years. So is there hope? How much hope do you see?
There is. There is. Now that everybody is quite aware, is feeling the heat, I think security is given the desired attention. To the point now, the president has indicated intention to rejig and re-engineer the whole of the security architecture in the country. Now,
but his instruction goes to the current service chiefs. But to really rejig and re-engineer the security system is beyond what anybody who is operational right now can do.
It depends on what you mean by rejigging. Because just like you rightly mentioned, there are so many problems associated. And I told you, when you are talking about rejigging, you have to think of, is it the policy, or is it legal framework, or is it the institutions itself? What are those problems associated? And it's a journey of 1,000 miles. They say it begins with a step. Now that we are bringing security to the front burner, people that are supposed to play the role they are supposed to be playing, now they will be conscious of it and people will put eye. Take for instance, just last year or early this year, the government launched a new national security or a reviewed national security strategy. The strategy is all encompassing. In addition to other legislations, terrorism, preventive acts, so many and so forth, the economic growth and what have you. So the security is not issue of physical security. It revolves around human beings. And that is why even the Constitution of Nigeria talked about the role, the primary responsibility of the government is welfare of the
welfare of the people.
So basically, but we tend not to take people into consideration in our security, formulations. Now, we naturally, in any given society, in fact, even between husband and wife, there are times you have misunderstandings. But what are those steps you take to ensure that that simple misunderstanding did not escalate to maybe physical violence or even armed conflict? These are the issues. Do we have such mechanism? What is the level of orientation on an average citizen? How he will be committed in terms of knowing his or her role when it comes to security issues and his relationship with other, citizens. What are his duties? What are his responsibility towards fellow citizens and residents, and possibly neighbors, as the case may be? So these are some of the issues, and when we start gradually bringing all these things into perspective, I believe we have less of these problems, less misunderstanding, and the police will effectively be doing their job, and we may not have need to be calling the military, for internal security. And it may interest you. I think almost there is hardly any state that the military is not deployed.
Almost no
Almost,
states where
including the Federal Capital Territory, under the auspices of Operation Mesa. Now, what
it's almost become a norm to us, but it's actually an anomaly for the Nigerian army to be wielding guns to protect Nigerian people, because the army exists for the protection of the people.
But the army doesn't deploy itself. They are called upon.
So it means that there is something deeply wrong within the society.
We have to mitigate the circumstances that warrant the calling of the military. It should be the last thing you should ever think whenever there are misunderstandings. You understand? And when they come to fulfill a particular mission, execute it and go
and exit
and hand over to the police. So these are the things. But now every now and then you see army this, navy this and that. And now you go back to what we are saying. We have talked about the police. Let's look at the armed forces. Are they well staffed? Do they have the required manpower? And I think we have to even give credit to the armed forces, because unlike other sectors of the society, I think they have steadily been recruiting. If not for the unfortunate pandemic of COVID-19, I believe scheduled recruitments and commissioning, are there. So automatically, they tend to beef up the manpower. But is it enough? It might not be enough. I'm so sure about that. Then are they equipped? And even apart from equipping, the remuneration and motivation of these troops, is it enough, given the enormity of the job they perform?
And taking care of their widows should anything happen to them.
Exactly. So these are the questions you look at. Then of course you look at the policy framework. What is the level of relationship between this? The synergy. What of coordination? What of the intelligent gathering and usage of it? Now you look, then you go back to other security agencies. What is the relationship between the Nigerian Civil Defense and Security Service? Security Corps, then with the police, along with correctional. You look at the whole of our criminal justice system. It's supposed to be a well-oiled machine, right from the ministries up to the security
up to
agencies.
prisons,
Yes,
the entire system.
let me tell you, it is so bad. Armed robbery can be planned in the prison system. I'm telling you, somebody outside will execute it. So is there any relationship between the police and the correctional service so that they can monitor these people?
All right, General. Well, I have just one more question, and I want to direct that to one of the things that I've been thinking about, and that is getting the general public to understand and appreciate the great sacrifice of what it means to be a soldier in Nigeria. So I would like you to share with us, in your experience during your military career, if you can just pick one experience where your life was actually in danger, or you were caught up, or some of the men that you were under your command. And what can you help us see life through a soldier's eyes?
Well, there are so many life-threatening instances, because I was at the war front between 2014 to 2015, where we lived by the minutes, where our headquarters was more or less about 5 kilometers from the camps of the Boko Haram terrorists. So, attacks here and there. And again, even when I became director, two instances where the chief of army staff was ambushed. I was part of the convoy. We had one nasty experience at Bunigari, shortly after Buniyadi, where they laid an IED. But the most significant was the ambush along Maiduguri, Logomani, Dikwa, Logomani axis out to Gambarungala. But we were ambushed in Logomani, in which we lost 5 gallant soldiers, and we were able to apprehend 5 terrorists, and I think we killed about 5 or 6 of them, I can't remember precisely. Now, a whole major general at that time, he was a brigadier general, was wounded to the point that he was incapacitated. You live with those, and is the post complex situation. Not when you leave the theater itself, you just have to, come to reality, adapt to normal life.
Because sometimes the theater does not leave you even after you leave it.
Exactly. Take for instance, I had a daughter. That time when I came back from the theater, she was fond of banging doors, and I told her, "Look, you're just lucky I don't bring arms into this house. I would have shot you, because by the way you are banging this door, I would just feel as if it was an attack that I need to pick up my arms and all that." So just to tell you how a soldier lives, apart from the other sacrifices and deprivations, you imagine yourself, Mr. Bentu, that you have a wife, you have children, you have parents, and you have not seen them for 2 years, and you are here in this country, simply because you want everybody to live in peace. Can just imagine it.
It's difficult to imagine.
So basically, there is so much talked about in respect of a soldier. It's not about material. It's about glory and fame, that you have the satisfaction that you are doing it for humanity, for your country, so that people will live in peace and let's all enjoy development. And in so doing, if days come calling, so be it. So in a nutshell, that is the life of a soldier. And I believe there are other people with far more traumatic experiences than even myself.
Well, General, thank you so much for sharing that story. I think that was a very powerful moment there, and thank you for your service.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate the opportunity.
We'll be right back. Now that was quite a moment with General S.K. Usman. It's easy to forget that behind those camouflaged uniforms are real-life men and women. So next time you see a soldier, take a moment to say thank you for your service. That's it on Exclusive Interview. Until we come your way again next time, thanks for stopping by.